All right, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Smith, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing a slight myth that's kind of an accident, involving global warming. Now, I do believe in global warming, and I certainly believe global warming is mostly man-made. It's like 100% man-made because there's no known natural cause for it. But if you go on Dr. Jeff Masser's old Wonder Blog site, Wonderground site, which he no longer owns, that he sold to the Weather Channel, but it's still wonderground.com, and they still have his old blogs up available on here. If you look up the worst tropical cyclones worst death tolls from tropical cyclones on record, um uh let me see. If you look up the worst tropical cyclone death tolls on record, something very strange happens. It turns out that almost none of them actually happened during global warming years. And in fact, almost all of them happened during global cooling years, very strangely. In fact, as a matter of fact, almost all of them, because I counted it up, out of the 30 highest death tolls on record, 20 something of them happened during volcanic winter years, not global warming years. Um, Out of the 30 worst death tolls in known world history, 20 something of them happened either the year of a worldwide volcanic catastrophe or the following year. Not during global warming years, they happened during global cooling years. And there is a perfectly rational explanation for that. When sulfur dioxide and dust get put into the upper atmosphere in the stratosphere, it cools the upper troposphere and cools the lower stratosphere, which then amplifies the vertical difference in heat from the surface of the Earth to the upper atmosphere, which makes the potential work that the same amount of energy at the surface can produce greater due to thermodynamics. The thermodynamics is a function, a hyperbolic function of the heat sink and the cold sink of any energy system, as you recall. So if you cool the upper atmosphere very rapidly, and the surface only cooled by like 10 or 20 degrees or more, and the surface only cools by about 1 degree during a volcanic winter, then the hurricane has about the same amount of energy available in the ocean, but the upper atmosphere is much cooler, so you generate lift and therefore spin also much more efficiently. So a volcanic winter hurricane is actually stronger than a global warming hurricane. All right. And I looked it up because I got into a debate with Dr. Masters and his best and most popular members one year whenever I was on there. And I was like, y'all are wrong about hurricanes. I said hurricanes are actually more powerful during volcanic winters than they are in global warming. And I said, your own data even shows that. I said, if you cross reference the 30 worst tropical cyclone death tolls on record in world history, I'm not lying. I did not make this up. I forget the exact number, but 20 something of them happened in volcanic winter years. All right. So, over 2/3 of them, almost 3/4 of them, happened in volcanic winter years, and none of them actually happened in global warming years, except Nargis, which doesn't necessarily even count because the death toll wouldn't even have been that high had the moron government evacuated the people, because the U.S. government and European government begged them to evacuate, and the government wouldn't call an evacuation, and the people didn't even know that one was coming. And so that's kind of an outlier. It wouldn't have happened had anybody with a brain told the people to evacuate. Um, But yeah, 20 something of them happened in volcanic winter years, and only one of them happened in a global warming year, which is Nargis. So myth is busted on tropical cyclones being stronger in global warming. There's also no evidence of that in the Atlantic. The Labor Day hurricane is still the strongest landfall in world history by pressure. Although Super Typhoon Haiyan was stronger by wind speed at landfall, but by pressure, the Labor Day 1935 hurricane in Florida is still the strongest landfall in world history, and that's done been 91 years ago to this day. So, uh, the idea that global warming is making hurricane landfall stronger is not actually supported by the facts. Um, even though global warming is definitely happening, and we can prove that with thermometers, the hurricanes are not getting stronger than they used to get. One of the worst hurricanes ever to hit Louisiana was the last island hurricane, and it was at least 150 miles per hour sustained, and might have even been a Category 5. Um, and that was in 1850 something, I think 1858 or something like that. It's called the Last Island Hurricane. Before the Labor Day hurricane. It was the strongest hurricane landfall on record in the United States. For 80 years, almost 80 years, 78, 77 years before it got overtaken by the Labor Day hurricane. So, um, they've been landfalling in the United States at 150 miles per hour for at least 150 years before global warming even got kickstarted. And the other thing is, the amount of global warming that's happened since the last island hurricane has actually been a good thing for humanity, because we don't burn as much firewood and coal as we used to stay warm. The winters in the 1800s and 1700s in the United States were so cold that the Mississippi River froze over solid all the way to the mouth of the river every year. All right. So, we don't want the winter to be that freaking cold. It would kill our crops, and we would never support the world population that we have right now. If winters were as cold as they were 100 or 200 years ago, we'd all starve to death every couple of years from ridiculous droughts and hard freezes. So you don't actually want the world to go back to a pre-industrial temperature. We couldn't support the world population that we have today if it did that. We'd starve to death. So there's some bad things about global warming that are going on, but hurricanes is not one of them. The hurricanes are just about the same strength they've always been.